Hey folks, in this video I am going to show you what I like to call the basic Wiccan ritual style. Now, the reason I call it the basic Wiccan ritual style is because A, I learned it from some Wiccans. First Wicca 101 class I took was over a summer vacation in high school at a little metaphysical shop, and a pair of high priestesses taught like it was a 4-week thing. Tiny, easy, basic stuff. And since then, I've seen this same format used again and again and again, from one tradition to another. Many non-traditional methods are still based on the same structure, and really the reason for this is it is effective at setting up kind of a multi-layered, multi-tiered, complex set of energies and hold them in a balanced form around you, whether that is purely for spell casting, whether it is for meditation, whether it is for prayer. And you will see little variations here and there where different groups or different individuals will put this part first or that part first. Some will even leave a part out. Some might add other characteristics altogether. But this basic formula as a way to set up rituals, honestly, whether you're Wiccan or not, is excellent in the fact that it can be diversified as far as you possibly want to diversify it, and yet still be based on a sound structure. Let's get started with the steps. First, there's grounding and centering. After grounding and centering, we have blessing of the salt and water. After blessing the salt and water, we mix the salt and water before asperging. That is blessing the area or cleansing the area with the holy water. Then there's the blessing of the incense. Then there is the censing of the area to bless the air, get the good vibes going. After this, you generally would have the casting of the circle, and that's something that's done partially with like the hand, magical will, maybe a tool, be it an athame, as the more traditional Wiccans always use as the main power tool, versus, say, a magic wand or something of either a different tradition or of your own invention. The key is that you're not just using an object and hoping something happens, or visualizing and hoping it happens. The point is to expand yourself into the aethers around you, and with a combination of mind energy and willpower, carve a circle of light into the very space around you and create a sphere from that. In the grounding and centering, that's where you first get into that magical headspace. That's kind of where you begin to step into the zone of controlling that energy. Okay, so grounding and centering, blessing the salt and water, mixing them, asperging, incense, censing, casting the circle. Then we get into the invocation of the 4 elemental powers, usually at that point in time followed by the invocation of the god and the goddess. Now, there can be a great deal of variance here between whether people simply say the god and the goddess, and by that are referring to kind of the universal polarized powers, the yin and the yang, at a universal level. Others are referring to specific deities that they may view as cultural archetypes. Others are speaking to and invoking deities that they believe to be individual, sentient, living powers. In almost any of these scenarios, it's classical to invoke one male and one female, but that's not a rule that you have to follow as an individual practitioner. You can cast a circle and use this same formula to invoke a single god or goddess, or a being that might not even be a god or goddess, or to invoke multiple members of a pantheon. You know, there are many different ways you can approach this central part of bringing divine forces to bear on this circle, because you've cleared the area, you've created this bubble of energy, you've pulled elemental powers into it, and hopefully as you were invoking them, you were directing them as well, using the invocation to begin whatever work or spell crafting you were intending. So this sphere is now charged with elemental energy, and what sort of divine energy you draw in is going to hopefully vary with the nature of your working and support the nature of your working accordingly. After the invocation, that's when you get to the spell crafting part of it, or the meditation, or the prayer, or whatever the cause of the casting of the circle may be. After which, you genuinely thank the deities for their presence and assistance, and let them know that your rite is done. Generally speaking, I would consider it a little bit inappropriate to banish a deity when you're done. A simple thank you and farewell will suffice. Then comes the release of the elemental powers. Then comes the not breaking of the circle, but rather the opening of the circle. And in some ritual styles, you won't even need to open the circle, because you'll have collapsed the energy of the circle into some sort of fetish or central element of the spell. But if you haven't done that, then opening the circle, one of the classics is like, may the circle be open but never broken, something like that. And then you finish off with cakes and ale, which I have found to be an excellent way to ground, regardless of whether or not you want to look up some, in my personal opinion, boring old Celtic recipe, or whether you just want to get some nice pastries and something good to drink. It's a good way to bring yourself back into the consensus reality and allow the magic that you've cast out to do its work without any further conscious interference. Now, there are a couple of different ways to pick which direction you're going to face when you get started. Some traditions, those that have more in common with ceremonial magic and masonry, are going to focus on the east, the direction of the rising sun. This has connotations of rebirth, new birth, the illumination. So calling that light power is kind of a reason to face the east. Others face the north, because the north is, classically speaking, the direction of Earth. It's the magnetic pole, whatever, and it's also the realm of darkness. If we look at, north, south, east, and west, which direction is the coldest and darkest, that's definitely the north. So there's an underworld connection that allows for deeper work in certain instances. And you, of course, could find reasons for west and south as well, but east and north are the most typical directions to pick. In Chinese Qigong, they always face to the south, because they believe that the magnetic polarity of the earth aligns with your body better when you face south. So there's something to think about if you want to get cross-cultural with it. So let's do a very, very off-the-cuff example of a very basic Wiccan ritual style. And I'm not going to be actually casting a spell or anything here. I'm just going to do a quick run-through. Alright, so I'm going to start facing the north for this ritual practice. And let's start by getting our magic tools. We have a chalice. We have a dagger in the east representing air. We have a wand in the south representing fire. And I am aware of the fact that the wand and dagger attributions are usually the opposite in most styles of Wicca, but I tend to go with the older attribution, regardless of what style it may come from, in that regard anyway. A little bit of Morton's sea salt, not iodized, so you can't get your iodine out of it, according to the label. Har har har. Alright, grounding and centering. Now, one of the simplest ways to do this is by simply visualizing yourself releasing all of your energy downward through your feet and letting roots grow into the ground beneath you. One of the big challenges for some people, though, is if they live on second or third floor of a building, they wonder, are they grounding into the empty space beneath them? Now, simple answer to that is that if you are on the ground floor in actual contact with the earth, it is going to help your grounding exercise. It honestly will. However, even if you're at the top of a skyscraper, there's also the simple polarity of your own energy body to take into consideration. simply by bringing your attention downward and pouring your energy downward, regardless of the environmental circumstance. You're bringing your aura and your power into a certain shape, a certain conformation that we like to call grounded. Step 2 of that is usually to then grow branches out the top, and to visualize growing these branches out wide, 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 and with your energy actually grow out branches and feel your energy open into flowers and leaves and soak in the light. And so you have this stream of hot molten red earth energy pouring upward, and a stream of light energy out of the sky, stars, sun, and moon pouring downward, swirling together in your heart. And when you bring your point of awareness to that vortex of power, that is what we call centered. As far as blessing the salt in the water, this can be very simple. I like to bless the salt with an earth pentagram, which classically starts at the top point, moves down left, and follows from there. That's an invoking earth pentagram. And then you just kind of make up some ritual verse off the top of your head, or memorize some ritual verse. Let's see if I can come up with anything good on the spot. Powers of earth, bless this salt with the power of consecration to purify this space in the physical plane and in the dense astral plane, so that all powers of chaos and malignance are driven away and find no home here. So mote it be. And then we bless the water. And again, using the classical pentagrams, you would start at the left point, move right, then down for an invoking water pentagram. So we'll go ahead and trace that. I like to create it out of kind of a blue fire, put it in the water. Powers of water, bless this chalice for the purpose of blessing and consecration. Bless the water in it, that it may be in this physical form a representation of the ultimate archetypal purification and power of water. Now we combine them. Salt and water now combine to purify this circle mine. Just that easy. Alright, and now we sprinkle. Usually you go ahead and go clockwise. They like to call it docile in the old tongue, which is basically sunwise. I know, I'm turning my back to the camera. It's horrible video etiquette. But want to get all around. And this is actually a great practice for outside of circle casting as well. Just to bless and consecrate salt water, sprinkle it through your house, office, workspace, anywhere that you want to bring chaotic energy down to the ground. Little droplets of salted water pulling it out of the very air. Alright, next step is to bless the incense. Now this is eternal devotion, which smells kind of like my grandmother's perfume. Lovely. Sense and powers of herbs be awakened to bless the air and atmosphere of this circle, to bring divine powers of goodness, harmony, love, and peace to fill this space. So mote it be. And then we just light it up. And spread it around. Depending on what scent you're using, some people like to use a strong purifier like a bundle of sage, or like cedar incense is a wonderful purifier. Often like to kind of spread the smoke all over their physical body. And if you are using incense for various magical purposes, this can be great, even if you're not using it necessarily to purify, but rather to bless. Alright, next part is casting the circle. Now, I like to use my wand for this. A lot of different ways to do it. Some people are going for a cone of power, which is more of a British tradition style. More typical is a sphere of power. Either way, you can make up words to go along with it, or just focus on the visualization. I like to go for the sphere of power, so I do a clockwise circle of white light and then spinning in both directions to make a three-dimensional sphere of energy. And I like to say something like, cast the circle all around, cast the circle tightly bound. Keep that out which is not welcome. Keep that in which here belongs. Something like that. I think I had it better a few years ago when I was saying it more frequently. It rhymed better. In any case, there we go. Now we have time for the invocations. I'm not going to get into those because I don't call out to gods generally unless I actually want their attention. Suffice it to say, invokity voke voke, invokity voke voke. Oh, totally skipped over calling the quarters. Would you look at that? I can't even remember the bloody formula. Alright, the next step is calling quarters. Now, one of the important things to understand here when we're calling the four elements is that we're not just saying this to like trigger some happy thoughts in our mind about I feel like water. We're calling out to very real forces and powers that are conscious in their own way. So as we're calling out to them, we are actually speaking to them. We are introducing them to this circle, to this ritual, and to the reason that we have called them. So rather than just saying, I invoke the powers of earth, the power of stability and abundance, you know, if you have a specific purpose, you can say something more along the lines of, I call out to the element of earth in the cardinal north. I invoke you and ask you to support this spell of abundance, to put your power to making it lasting and durable so that as my income increases, so too shall that increase be lasting, predictable, and reliable. Now, how much more effective is that in telling the conscious living power, which is elemental earth, what you want it to do? As you call the four quarters, as you call the four elements, tell them what you want them to do. If you can make it poetic and rhythmic, that's even better. I like to think that these being powers and beings of vibratory nature, that when we can get that kind of almost Shakespearean iambic roll to our words, or other types of rhythms that'll work well, that it's actually more harmonious with the nature of the forces and beings that we interact with in these rituals. Alright, so we have gone through the whole opening up to the invocation of the god and the goddess. We cast a spell, we meditate, we pray, etc. We bid farewell to the god and goddess. We thank them. Then we release the elements. Now, usually you summon the elements clockwise. You go north, east, south, west, or earth, air, fire, water. When you're releasing them, you go in the opposite direction. Water, fire, air, earth. You know, it can be powers of water. I thank you for bringing the powers of insight into this spell, so that in its fruition, I will know what is to come and have the insight to receive the gifts which the goddess and God have in store for me. Hail and farewell. Or something like, you know, I think that one was kind of crappy. This is what I get for making things up as I'm making up the video. But, you know, when you're just, I believe in doing lots of rituals, so sometimes you just gotta wing it. You know, it's nice to take your time and write out a beautiful ritual and really do it to the max. But sometimes you just gotta do it and let yourself get into the magical space without everything being perfect, just to tell yourself that it's okay to be there more often. Anyway, so we have bid farewell to the divine ones. We have released the powers of the quarters. Now we break the circle that we've created. It can be something as simple as finding a point on it, kind of inserting your will and just releasing it. The circle is open but never broken. And why do we say that the circle is never broken when we just broke the circle itself? That's one of those slippery little linguistic elements of correspondence, where the circle that we've created of safety is also the circle of other practitioners who walk in the light. And so while the circle of your ritual is open, The circle of your connection with this life is ever unbroken. Blessed be, my friends.